Bulama is in Lambeth. Bulama, what would you like to say?
No, thank you, James.
Very welcome.
I think Netanyahu knows that there is no end to this, and he's just saying this so he would continue to deploy his soldiers to kill and to maim and to displace people from their homes. We know that this situation has been going on for decades, and unfortunately, like you said on the top of the program, what has happened over the past 7 weeks, 13,000 people killed, would only arm Hamas to mobilize, recruit, and radicalize more young people. And it's not just Hamas, James. I was looking at groups in Africa, and you just can't imagine how Al-Qaeda affiliates across Africa are using the Palestinian situation, the attacks in Gaza, to recruit young people and to mobilize money and to raise funds. So Netanyahu knows that there is no end in sight. And when he says no one can stop them or nothing can stop them, he's just bluffing, because we know that when you ask what changed between the period when they were saying there cannot be cessation of hostilities or peace talks with Hamas, we know that it was U.S. that changed the situation. It was Joe Biden that confronted him and made him to do it. We know that Joe Biden did it for political reasons. He saw how he is sinking in the polls in the U.S. Because people still have conscience and they know that what's going on is wrong. He then pressured Netanyahu to do what he did in terms of the recent post that we saw. And so if the U.S. wants Israel to stop killing innocent people in Gaza, they would stop. If the U.S. would continue to pay lip service to the two-state solution, if the U.S. would continue to pay lip service to the plight of the Palestinian civilians, then Netanyahu would continue because, he saw it as a carte blanche when we had the last conversation. It was only after Western leaders had made it clear to him that there are now red lines because of pressure, political pressure from the West, that he is now shifting ground.
So, but as a holding tactic rather than a tactical change. So what we see is a truce, almost as a fig leaf, as a purchase of time before he starts again, not as a change of intent or a change of tactic.
Yeah. The only way it will become change of intent or tactic is if the U.S. continues to stamp its feet on the ground to tell him you cannot continue. And of course, one reason why Netanyahu may be saying this is to provoke Hamas leaders to also make similar statements, so he can use his statements to galvanize support in the West, to say, look what they are saying. They are saying they would repeat this.
So, I hadn't thought of that. So, in many ways, him saying we are continuing until the end, nothing will stop us, you're suggesting is a counterbalance to Hamas leaders saying we will not stop attacking Israel. We will continue our attacks.
And what I am saying is they have said that in the past. Said that. Now he's saying this in order to provoke more statements from them, more violent rhetoric from them, so he can use the
which
violent
gives him
rhetoric.
More justification to continue. So I do enjoy talking to you. I enjoyed it enormously last time as well, if that's the right word to use. I wish we weren't having any of these conversations for obvious reasons. But there is an end. You say that there will be an end. It's just a question of what that will look like. And previous callers suggesting it will look like a return to where we were when it started, but with Gaza much diminished, to use a euphemism.
At least that's what Israel wants, if we were to go by what Israel wants. The reason why they cannot talk to Hamas, which makes sense, is that Hamas does not recognize the Palestinian, the Israeli state. But the Palestinian ambassador was last on at LBC, and she was asked by, I'm trying to remember the name of the presenter at 6 o'clock.
Andrew Marr.
Sorry?
Andrew Marr.
Yeah, Andrew Marr was asking her, would you enter into two-state solution talks with the LPO? And she said, no, Mahmoud Abbas and others, we will not sit down for a two-state solution talk with her. Why? She said because they did not condemn Hamas for the October 7th attack. Now, they would not sit with Hamas. The reason is that it is in Hamas charter that they do not recognize the Israeli state. The LPO recognizes the state. They want two-state solution. They want the Israeli government to sit down with them to passion out the details of the two-state solution. But what excuse are they using? They are using the excuse that the LPO did not condemn Hamas, and therefore we will not sit with them, and therefore they are guilty by association by not condemning Hamas. Assuming that is true, you would then start to wonder, so who would they sit with? If we know that LPO members have been killed mercilessly by Hamas, they were poached from the Gaza Strip by being pushed from rooftops to die, and that's why they left the place. And just one more point, James. I don't know where you got the one Hamas fighter for every 13 innocent Palestinians, but if that statistics were to hold, then what we are talking about, I mean, the current estimate is that there are between 40 to 50,000 Hamas fighters, and if 13 innocent individuals are killed for each Palestinian fighter, then we are looking at 737,000 Palestinians dying before Israel can eradicate Hamas.
And this is, I mean, I got the numbers from Dan Saba's analysis in the Guardian today. So the Israelis military estimates it's killed between 1,000 and 2,000 Hamas fighters, and the figure they work on is that there's 30,000 in total. But I know you work in this field as well. These numbers are always going to be quite fluid, but your calculations are obviously correct. But that's the. I don't want to use a phrase like elephant in the room because it sounds trivial, but it is all boiling down, because all that we are left with ultimately is the insistence that we are here to eradicate Hamas.
Yeah,
and,
it is.
And the question then becomes, how many non-Hamas Palestinians are we prepared to kill in pursuit of that not necessarily even achievable goal? And that's where it almost the humanity disappears.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I can tell you, James, that if it continues at this rate, the only Palestinians you would leave are Hamas members. Because no Palestinian would bear to see members of their families being killed, their homes being destroyed.
That's the bit that just makes so much sense to most outsiders, I think, in the idea you're going to eradicate the feelings that lead people to join Hamas by piling misery upon catastrophe upon carnage. I don't understand that, and I think people cling to that hope almost in defiance of their own intellect, Bulama. That almost, for reasons of history and for reasons of fear and for reasons of homeland safety, whatever you want to call it, you cling to the idea that there's something else going on, and you refuse to address the question of whether or not any price is too high in the pursuit of what Netanyahu does. So in his mind, finally, when he says the end, you think he's just blowing smoke, really. He's not got an actual meaningful destination in mind.
Yeah, he doesn't have any actual meaningful destination. He wants to provoke Hamas leaders to make similar statements so he can use it. He wants to continue to stay in power by continuing to show that he is trying to bring an end to Hamas. And this only reminds me, James, of one of your clips that went viral of the lady who claims that the military onslaught on Gaza was intended to free the hostages, which you clearly showed was not true. What we said in the beginning is now bearing fruit, and they are now seeing that the only way to free hostages and to bring calm to the Middle East is through negotiation. And they have got to find someone to negotiate with. If you are saying you cannot negotiate with Hamas, you must at least negotiate or sit down with the LPO. Otherwise, you would continue to perpetuate a situation that will continue to push people to the wall. And unfortunately, nasty, barbaric things might come out of that.
I'd add one final line to your analysis, which is on a much more personal perspective for Netanyahu. For him, the end game as Andrew has reminded me, is to achieve an outcome which keeps him in power and out of court. That's going to be playing a big part in his calculations as well at the moment.
Exactly. We know that the trouble he was in politically and legally before this situation unfolded, and he sees this as the smoke screen to continue in power. Unfortunately, politicians of this age, many of them are happy to stay in power at any cost.
At any cost, there it is. Bulama, thank you. Crikey, there's so much, isn't there, to process, but sometimes some people do manage to bring a clarity and an illumination to the to the complicated issues. AJ says, your current caller is brilliant. Why is he not in the UN? Someone who has so much common sense and understands situations. Well, I can tell you that Bulama is an esteemed academic whose work you can find out more about by just looking up Bulama Bukarti. And we've had the pleasure of him ringing in now on a couple of occasions. And on both occasions, I've come away feeling better informed, if not any more optimistic about